Welcome to 5X series, company number 4, Tesla. Its stock is currently trading at about $235 with a market cap of about $738 billion. So in this video, I'm going to talk about whether we can do a 5X from the current price of $235 by 2030. That's 7 years out. In general, I cover the business model of the company and also cover the financials, but for the case of Tesla, I've done a few videos in the past, so I'm not going to repeat that information. I will straight move on to the valuation in 2030. As you can see on the screen, they made about $81 billion of revenue in 2022, and I'm estimating a 26.5% growth rate year over year for the next 7 years. And that will give them $530 billion of revenue by 2030. So you can ask me how I came up with this 26.5% year over year growth, because they're not so close to that revenue growth rate in the most recent quarters, right? The main reasoning for this is I have calculated the revenue based on certain assumptions, and that came out to be $530 billion. And when I back calculated the estimated growth rate, it turned out to be 26.5%. So let me show you the assumptions behind this $530 billion of revenue by 2030. As you can see on the screen, I'm estimating that they can sell 12.5 million vehicles in 2030. Toyota, for example, sells close to 11 million vehicles globally in a year. So I'm estimating that Tesla can reach to that stage in 2030. At an average price of $35,000 per car, they can make $438 billion of revenue. In order for Tesla to sell these many cars, they should come up with a cheaper model than Tesla Model 3. So I'm assuming that they'll come up with that model way before 2030. Otherwise, this assumption is not going to be valid. The next item is autopilot subscription. Full self-driving, in my opinion, is impossible because there are so many edge cases, like infinite number of edge cases. Even though Tesla is collecting a lot of data on a daily basis to cover those edge cases, there are just infinite possibilities. In addition, there are regulators who will create a huge hurdle for the FSD commercialization. And even if the regulators say yes to the FSD commercialization, one small accident will ground every vehicle in the world. So because of the complexity of FSD and the infinite number of edge cases, and since we're dealing with human life, I don't think we will have any chance of FSD commercialization by 2030. I could be wrong. However, I do believe that Tesla will have a good enough autopilot where people can use that on a subscription basis by paying about $20 per month. So that's why I put $240 per year. That's the price per unit. And I'm estimating that by 2030, there will be close to 40 million Tesla vehicles on the road that are going to use this subscription. So that's why I assumed 40 million number there. So that comes out to be about $10 billion. This is not too significant, but that's how it is. It's a software service. After that, we have energy and others. In my opinion, the charging network is an extremely thin margin industry. I would be surprised if Tesla makes a profit, because usually when you sell electricity, you will not make too much money. Even if they make few $1 billion of net income, even if you give a multiple of 20 or 25, it'll still result in about $100 billion of market cap, which is nothing compared to what they are anticipating with the vehicles business, right? So that's why I'm not too positive on the charging network. With respect to energy, there is batteries and other solar infrastructure, and they also have a software, optimization software for energy. So overall, I'm estimating about $80 billion of revenue in energy and others by 2030. Of course, Tesla has a bot project. I don't think that'll be a reality even in 2040. The technology is just not available for its commercialization. So these are my assumptions. Of course, if you believe that the Tesla robot project would be a success, you can increase the revenue estimation by 2030. If you think FSD is possible, you can even make $1 trillion of revenue by 2030. But these are my assumptions based on my belief and my understanding of this company. So $527 billion, right? So that's how the revenue came. With respect to the net profit margin, I'm estimating 17%. They are nowhere near this figure now. They are in the low single digit net profit margin, which is terrible. But they used to get about 30% gross margin and 17% net margin during the COVID, where the demand for cars was very high, and Tesla has increased the prices at that time. But current environment where the interest rates are very high, people are not inclined to buy cars. But I'm estimating that by 2030, obviously the interest rates are going to stabilize and people are going to buy cars. Tesla can raise their prices again. Of course, they can also build some optimization into their operating costs because they build huge gigafactories with vertical integration, so they can save on operating costs. So I'm estimating 17% net profit margin in 2030. For now, people may think it's ridiculous, but I think 17% by 2030 is possible. With that, they can make close to $90 billion of net income in 2030. With respect to multiple, I'm assuming anywhere between 25 and 30. For example, Apple currently gets close to 30 multiple, right? So by 2030, Tesla will mature as a company. If they already sell 12.5 million cars, the growth rate is going to be very minimal after that. So that's why the multiple range I've given is in between 25 and 30. With a 25 multiple, the 2030 market cap will be about $2.26 trillion. And if market pays a 30 multiple, it will be $2.71 trillion. When I divide the 2030 market cap with the number of outstanding shares, I get a stock price range between $658 and $790 for Tesla in 2030. Currently, they're at $235, right? So that's about 180% gain, or close to a 3x by 2030. On the other hand, if market pays a 30 multiple, we're looking at a stock price of $790, which represents about 236% gain, or a 3.4x by 2030. So in conclusion, we're not looking at a 5x by 2030 for Tesla based on my assumptions. For the company to do a 5x, the price has to fall anywhere between $132 and $158. So in short, if Tesla's stock price falls to about $150, then we're looking at a 5x. But at the current price, the maximum that we're looking at is the 3.5x in 7 years, which is not a bad gain. It's really good. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for watching.